Kirby Smart and his Georgia Bulldogs have a design on another appearance in the college football playoff. But a rival stands in their way. It's Georgia Tech and fifth-ranked Georgia. Between the hedges. It is a simple rivalry, really. It is clean, old-fashioned hate. And there is tremendous history and tradition behind it. These two programs first met in 1893, and while Georgia leads the all-time series, they can't even agree on the true series record. Tech counts 2 wins during World War II. Georgia says those games didn't happen. So these neighbors get together again. If there's any doubt in how far back the hate goes, just turn to the fight songs. Georgia Tech says to hell with Georgia. The Dogs say, and to hell with Georgia Tech. And with that, we welcome you. Happy Thanksgiving. Tom Hart, Jordan Rogers, Cole Kublik down on the field. It's really simple. Bulldog Nation thinks that they're going back to the playoff with a win against Alabama next week. Georgia Tech could be the ultimate spoiler, keeping their rival from doing that. Yeah, it is going to be an old-fashioned tight game. Both teams want to control the ball. To me, the discipline that Georgia's going to have on defense to slow down an offense that really no one has so far this year. Georgia Tech won the toss. They defer a short kickoff. And that's where the Bulldogs will start, and they'll start without some key players. Cole's got more.
It's going to be big not having linebacker Monty Rice in the lineup tonight. Tom, obviously facing the triple option. Roquan Smith at linebacker had a huge game against Georgia Tech a year ago. On the other side, in the trenches, Georgia's still a little bit banged up. Cade Mays not going to be able to go. Ben Cleveland will be available. I do not expect to see much of him today for the Bulldogs on offense.
All right, Cole, thanks. Georgia and Georgia Tech meeting for the 113th time. And a Georgia native, sophomore Jake Fromm, at the helm for the Bulldogs. 22-3 as a starter, and his first pass is complete to Tyler Simmons, and Simmons turns it in to an 11-yard gain. Jake Fromm from Warner Robins, Georgia, Houston County High School, a quarterback, a Little League star, and a legend in his own time right here with the Georgia Bulldogs. He is 4th in the country in passer rating. He is 3rd in the country in pass efficiency. And he's coming off of a brief but perfect outing last week against UMass. On the ground for the first time, Elijah Holyfield has to bounce it outside. Georgia's speed evident early. It's a gain of 8. Yeah, this is really where they found a lot of success running the football this year. Haven't been as north and south as maybe a traditional Georgia offense, or even as much as they were last year, but Holyfield and Swift have done a great job of getting to the edge, and it looks like Holyfield came up limping a little bit on that one. Immediately to the athletic training staff, gingerly on the right leg. They've got a 1-2 punch. DeAndre Swift will take over now. They're both top 10 in the SEC in rushing yards. On 2nd and 2, here's Swift. And the sophomore picks up a first down, tackled by Brant Mitchell. The previous play, Holyfield at the tail end. Right there, looks like his right leg just gets caught in the turf a little bit as he's getting taken down. That was Johnny Kerr on the tackle. He's in for the injured Lamont Simmons, who left the Virginia game last week in the 3rd quarter, did not return, will not play today. Isaac Nauta is the tight end in motion for Georgia. Play action again. Fromm has time. Lobs one. Complete up the sideline to Terry Godwin. What perfect touch against the Georgia Tech zone. A gain of 22. And this is what makes Jake Fromm so good. Not only is he going to beat you post or pre-snap with his mind, but post-snap, this is, and to most quarterbacks, this throw is covered. But the level 2 ball gets it up and over the defender there, sees the field 3-dimensionally, not 2-dimensionally, meaning he knows how to manipulate the trajectory of his ball to find those open receivers, even when it might look covered. Swift bottled up. It's a gain of 1 in the first positive play for Georgia Tech. Henri St. Amour, the senior from Suwanee, Georgia, out of North Gwinnett, with the tackle for Tech.
St. Amour, really one of their best defensive players, but just 245 pounds. This is a matchup to watch as this game goes on. The size difference from the Georgia offensive line versus this Georgia Tech defensive line as they sub in number 90, Brandon Adams, probably their biggest guy at 325 at nose guard right now. He's going to need to control the center in the interior line for Georgia Tech today.
Fromm on 2nd and 9 goes to Terry Godwin, and that's going to set up a 3rd and short. The vitals for the starters are simple. Georgia's offensive line, average offensive line size, 327 pounds. Georgia Tech up front, 254.
A little bit of a mismatch there from a physicality standpoint. That's why Georgia Tech is going to need to be disruptive in between the gaps. They got to get upfield vertically to try to have a chance at the line of scrimmage.
Jumbo package with 2 tight ends. Fromm checks in the line. 3 tight ends, pardon me, with Isaac Nauta in there as well. 3rd down 2. Here's Swift. 1st down, and he works his way inside the 10. Gain of 10. Brandon Adams finally with the stop.
You see a great block backside by number 89 tight end Charlie Werner, kicking out the defensive end, getting that run started, going north and south. Good to see by DeAndre Swift, who of the 2 backs, him and Holyfield, he's more of the slasher, get him on the edge. But with Holyfield out now with an injury that we're not sure, DeAndre Swift is going to need to go north and south a lot more than he's used to.
8th play of the opening drive for Georgia. 1st and goal. Here's Swift. Ran into a wall, still able to move forward and pick up 1. The positive for Georgia Tech's defense this season has been their takeaways. Last year they had 10 takeaways total, already 24 this season. Tied for 9th in the country in takeaways. And they're going to need some of those to try to slow down this Georgia offense and be opportunistic this afternoon. Fromm out of the gun. Elijah Holyfield back in the game. Fromm in zone. Caught. Easy touchdown pass to Riley Ridley, his 7th catch of the season in the end zone.
We mentioned the mismatch at the line of scrimmage for the size of Georgia versus the lack of size at Georgia Tech. The other mismatch to note, these receivers for Georgia as versatile as they've been. I think that's the biggest difference from last year to this year. The versatility they have on the outside. Man-to-man coverage there, just an inside slant. Big-bodied Riley, not going to lose that matchup.
Fan favorite Rodrigo Blankenship on for the point after. And he remains perfect in that regard. Georgia wasted no time. 9 plays, 75 yards. They move with ease over 4:37. And it's the Dogs up 7-0. Jackets will take over next. So Paul Johnson has seen every wrinkle thrown at his offense.
They're really good at math, too, so those decimals won't be a problem.
Wanye Thomas to return. The kick goes out of bounds just in front of the pylon at the 3-yard line, and Georgia Tech will have good field position. Paul Johnson has a great feel for the game. He is an offensive savant. He will rotate quarterbacks depending on who gives him the best chance. He'll start with Taquon Marshall, senior from Hamilton, Georgia, population 1,200, just north of Columbus at a Harris County High School. 14th in school history in rush yards, 10 100-yard rushing games. Georgia Tech's production mainly comes from its quarterback position when it comes to the ground game. He's run for 857. He's thrown for 755. Jerry Howard, the B-back. Clinton Lynch is the A-back on the right side. And Quay Searcy on the left side. Marshall will keep it and take it for 6.
Discipline, discipline, discipline is the word of the day. Talking to Kirby Smart and Mel Tucker, the defensive coordinator for Georgia. Each one of these linebackers, each safety as they play closer to the box, will have 1, possibly 2 guys they're looking at. They do one thing, that changes your responsibility. So discipline on the backside as well as discipline with having a man-for-man for each option that Georgia Tech has, extremely important.
Safety sneaks up on 2nd and 5. It's a give to Jerry Howard, and he is swarmed after a gain of 2. Georgia Tech head coach Paul Johnson will send Quay Searcy in with another play. He's in his 11th season as a head man on the flats. He's won 59% of his games, and he's won 2 in a row here in Athens. 3rd down 6 at midfield. And Marshall takes it just shy of the line to gain, and he lost his helmet. So Tobias Oliver, if they choose to go for it on 4th down, will come in at quarterback. He lost his helmet because it got ripped off after the play by Michael Barnett. It's one way to get the quarterback out.
And Tobias Oliver trotting in. He's actually the better runner, so going for it here on 4th and short. Had a couple dives up the middle. Wouldn't be surprised they get Oliver going off tackle with a fake to the dive.
So now the Jackets will punt it away. Terry Godwin back at his own 10 for Georgia. Presley Harvin, leading the ACC in punt average, will kick it away. Fair catch asked for and taken at the 12. 38-yard punt by Presley Harvin III. Georgia back on offense when we return to the Classic City. 25 Georgia seniors recognized before the game today. One of the best classes in Georgia history, and if they win a national title, they would be the best by wins. Better the 2005 class, 2 East Division titles, an SEC championship, a Rose Bowl championship, and still chasing the national title. Elijah Holyfield in the game of tailback for Georgia. And Holyfield takes it a few yards on the left side. Let's get 2 games running concurrently that will have an impact in the college football playoff. Georgia right now on the outside looking in as the 5th ranked team in the country. They look really good and really fast. Elijah Holyfield, the new deal down the sideline, and a Georgia first down on a 39-yard gallop.
Boy, great block here by the left guard, Solomon Kinley, to really seal this. Wasn't much he had to do here. Late shift by the defensive front for Georgia Tech. Kinley does a great job of washing that guy out of the way so Holyfield could spring loose. Good to see him healthy back out there after we weren't sure about that injury earlier.
Replaced by Swift. Fromm fires over the middle. That's complete for another Georgia first down. Charlie Werner on a gain of 14.
Going back to that last run play, Jordan, this offense expects the Georgia Tech defense to move around a lot. Just a little draw there, and when the defense is going to take themselves out of a play, you don't have to get a ton of movement. It leads to an explosive play there for Holyfield.
That's kind of the double-edged sword. I mean, if you're Georgia Tech, you have to move up front because you can't just stand there and get pushed around by an offensive line that has the physical advantage. But when you do move, you leave A gaps, you leave B gaps wide open, like what we just saw.
Here's Swift. DeAndre Swift upended by Malik Rivera. Transfer from Wofford on a gain of 5.
You know, it was interesting, guys, yesterday to hear Georgia offensive coordinator Jim Chaney say, we are a north-south run football team. But they haven't been that in every game this season. When they've dedicated themselves to it, they've been dominant. Looks like they're trying to beat that team here early this afternoon.
What a task to replace the greatest rushing duo in college football history. DeAndre Swift and Elijah Holyfield have filled in nicely, but obviously not as explosive as this offense was last season. 4 different starting alignments across the offensive line, one of the reasons. 2nd and 5. Swift cut back. Another Georgia first down. Brent Mitchell finally brings him down after a pickup of 7.
Georgia's offensive line right now is setting the tone. They're getting upfield, getting bodies on bodies. Those holes, the holes are pretty big. What I loved about this pre-snap, Jake Fromm, this is a run play, and Jake Fromm is changing the mic point, which changes the blocking scheme up front. A lot of quarterbacks don't do that. That's the job of the center in most offenses, but Jake Fromm is so cerebral. He'll go up there, and he'll change the point to make sure they have the angles in the run that they need.
So first and goal, Dogs, second possession of the game, and Georgia trying to add to their lead. This is the 10th play of the drive. Swift cuts his way straight up the middle, and that'll set up second and goal from the 1 for the Dogs. His dad Darren having a hard time showing off his guns today with all the layers on a chilly Saturday afternoon.
You saw a big benefit of Jake Fromm checking that play at the line of scrimmage, Jordan, because the Georgia Tech defense stems late. They move the defensive line late. A nice way to be able to make sure you're in the right play.
Fromm is a perfect 6 for 6. He's thrown for 1 touchdown already. That was to Riley Ridley. 11th play of the drive. Swift dances behind the line, surges forward, and powers his way in for another Georgia touchdown.
Two incredibly efficient drives by Georgia, just running the football. And they're just lining up and saying, we are more physical, we're bigger than you, we're going to grind this game out just the way you want to. Those are picture-perfect drives. If you're offensive coordinator Jim Chaney, Jake Fromm throwing it 6 for 6 already in this game, and they're running the football extremely effectively.
Blankenship nails another. Georgia's had 2 offensive possessions. DeAndre Swift, though, with the touchdown run, his 9th rushing touchdown of the season. Welcome back to SEC football, presented by Allstate. Georgia trying to find its 11th win of the season, and the Dogs with a comfortable 14-0 lead on Georgia Tech. Remember, Tech was going to go for it on 4th down, their last possession, but jumped off sides. It forced a punt, and the Dogs, 11 plays and 88 yards later, extended their lead. Monte Thomas back to receive for Georgia Tech. Blankenship has been a touchback machine. From a yard out, or yard in, pardon me. And he's got room to the outside. Monte Thomas back up the hashes. He's in a race with Blankenship. Chased, and they finally get him, but it is a step too late. 100-yard kickoff return for Monte Thomas. His 2nd straight game with a kickoff return touchdown. And Georgia Tech special teams get him back in the game.
That is the answer they needed. And this is why I mentioned, not only when you're on the field as a defense, but even in special teams, discipline is so important. They lose contain on the outside. 1 cutback. Can't give these athletes green grass. They'll make you pay for it. He goes down short, but it depends where that ball is.
See if the ball broke the plane when the knee was down. Tremendous effort, by the way, by DeAndre Baker to track him down. Point after for Wesley Wells at a Lumpkin County High School. For the first time since 2012 in an ACC matchup against North Carolina, Georgia Tech has a 100-yard kickoff return for a score, just the 3rd in the Institute's history, 14-7. And just like that, Georgia Tech is within a touchdown. A 100-yard kickoff return for a score for Monte Thomas, 14-7, Georgia with the lead. Paul Johnson's defense has not put up much of a fight so far. Georgia's had 2 possessions. Bulldogs have scored on both. Sean Davis will kick it off. Miko Hardman back to receive for the Bulldogs. They keep it away from Hardman with a short kick. Taken at the 20. And Brian Harrion takes it out to the 37. Now, Tom Hartwood, Jordan Rogers, and Cole Kulick. We've got Peter Burns back in the studio. A great day for college football. Rivalry weekend. Jake Fromm 6 for 6 to start this game. 7 for 7. Jeremiah Holloman breaks free. Another missed tackle on the edge by Georgia Tech. It's a gain of 17.
Yeah, you're going to give that cushion on the outside. Regardless of what's called, Jake Fromm is going to throw it out there and trust his receiver. Jeremiah Holloman is a guy that had a ton of hype this spring. Big spring game. Little bit lost in the mix in fall camp, but he's slowly starting to find his role on this team.
Only 4 words to describe this rivalry: clean, old-fashioned hate. Georgia with the early advantage, but Georgia Tech with the spark and momentum. We head to the second quarter between the hedges. 14-7 Bulldogs.
They're going to catch Georgia Tech playing up one of these times, and they will take a shot.
A little bit of room, a stutter step, then Holyfield lost his footing, picks up 4. Trey Swilling the stop for Georgia Tech. Looked like Georgia was going to run away with this thing until Lawante Thomas kickoff return for a score. Georgia came in as heavy favorites. 5th ranked team in the country. 10th ranked rushing offense. 15th ranked scoring defense. And they go with wingbacks. Look at this play. Jason Stanley up the sideline. And Stanley finally forced out of bounds by Tariq Carpenter. It goes for 26.
Stanley's only had 2 touches on the entire season. You're going to see they're going to jam everybody into the box. There's no wide receivers on this play. Get everybody in tight. Get them on the edge. Just his 3rd touch of the entire season for Stanley, and nearly broke it for a touchdown.
I didn't know Georgia had A-backs.
Yeah, they're taking a page out of Georgia Tech there with the formation for sure.
Holyfield on the handoff from Fromm. He was bottled up for a hot second. Then he finds 5. Desmond Branch finally brings him down.
I'll tell you guys, Brandon Adams done a really nice job on the interior of this Georgia Tech defensive line. He doesn't get a ton of snaps in the regular season action. You wonder just how many he can go today, but having a bigger, beefier defensive tackle or nose guard in there has to help that Georgia Tech rush defense.
Branch at 270, Adams 325. Fromm over the middle. Too high for Isaac Naughty. It's a new look Georgia Tech defense under Nate Woody, who over the last 5 years was the defensive coordinator at Appalachian State. In fact, you do the math, he was the coordinator when Jake Fromm made his first appearance for Georgia, and against App, Fromm went 10 for 15 for 143 yards last year.
Yeah, they're taking the good with the bad on defense for Georgia Tech. Nate Woody brought in a more aggressive style, but with that, with taking more chances, installing a new defense, you're going to have mental mistakes. You're going to have breakdowns, especially on 3rd down. They've seen that. Their presser packages have not been good. That's why they're one of the worst on 3rd.
Trips to the left side for Fromm, looking that way the whole way. To the end zone. It is caught. Touchdown, Jeremiah Holloman. 12-yard strike, and what a grab for the sophomore.
Just another unbelievably impressive display of touch by Jake Fromm. If you're just looking at it, that's covered. There's no window to throw the football. There's a defender in front, one trailing. But the trust that Jake Fromm has in his big target, Jeremiah Holloman, throws that up and over. Boy, it's impressive.
And so Georgia's able to answer the kickoff return score with another scoring drive. This one, 6 plays, 63 yards. Jake Fromm has 2 touchdown passes today, 22 on the season. And it seems there's no stopping this Georgia offense. 3 drives for Georgia, 3 touchdowns. 2 from Fromm passing, 1 rushing. I don't know how you can improve on that. And Georgia scored a touchdown on every possession against UMass except the last one when they took a knee last week. So that is quite a run. Jake Camarda, their punter, hasn't had to work the last game and a half. Monte Thomas took the last one back 100 yards. Wanye, excuse me, and here he is from a yard deep, and he won't have a chance on that one. He sees Georgia Tech on offense running just its 7th play of the game here in the second quarter. And Taquon Marshall is able to keep it for 4. We talk a lot about the option look and the assignments, but how does misdirection affect the defense?
Well, it's that eye discipline we were talking about. Backside linebackers, backside safeties have to be extremely patient and extremely disciplined to stay home, because that misdirection, if someone leaves, oftentimes in the triple option, there's another A-back or the backside wing, the flow eventually comes back to you. So everyone's got to play with their head, not their heart, out there tonight. You start trying to make plays outside of your responsibility, that's when Georgia Tech will hit you big.
Pitch to Searcy, and he had an alley good enough for a first down. Tay Crowder finally brings him down. It's a pickup of 10. It was fun talking to both Kirby Smart and Mel Tucker about how Paul Johnson runs his offense, and Kirby was point blank. He said that guy is a step ahead of everybody. We're over here playing checkers, and he's playing chess. Pointing out that the way Paul Johnson sends in his plays via an A-back every single play, so there's no miscommunication, there's no room for discussion, that if he sees a missed assignment, oftentimes he'll see it before the defense will and take advantage of it on the very next play. Marshall keeps it, gets cut down. Crowder is there for the stop. It's a gain of 2.
I thought it was interesting talking to Mel Tucker. He mentioned, look, you can't scheme to stop certain plays. You have to scheme to dictate. If you start trying to play catch up and stop what they're doing, they'll be a step ahead. They've seen every defense possible. You've crammed for it for a week. There's nothing that you can do that they don't have an option, for lack of a better term, to do off of it. So you have to try to create overloads, have to try to dictate which side of the ball they run to. But knowing that you just have to play responsible, sound football like that right there.
That's Jonathan Ledbetter. Swallowed up Taquon Marshall. It's a loss of 2. It's going to leave 3rd and long for Tech.
And this is what you have to do at the point of attack. Ledbetter there taking on a block and then making a play. You have to stay on your feet, take on blocks, and when you have the opportunity, you have to tackle. Great job there by Ledbetter doing both.
Took down his dear friend, Taquon Marshall. It will only get louder. Marshall kept it, nowhere to go. A gain of only 3. Taquon Marshall had to go to each and every offensive lineman and get in their ear to change the play.
Yeah, it's something that you can't coach. You just got to react in the situation. But a great job here by DeAndre Walker, number 15 there, of playing sound football, setting an edge, forcing everything inside. Taquon Marshall wanted to get on the edge there, but he couldn't. Had to stuff it up inside. And now on a 4th and 7, I think they got to throw the football.
They'll throw for the 2nd time. No, they won't. Marshall tracked down and dropped, and Georgia turns him over on downs. Jordan Davis with the sack.
Number 99.
Marshall had nowhere to go downfield. He had nowhere to go in the backfield. Georgia gets the ball back, up 2 touchdowns.
Well, Georgia Tech doesn't love throwing the football. They're going to try to do a little half roll, and they want Taquon Marshall to set up right there, but you're going to see Malik Herring really blows this play up from the start. He's going to provide pressure here, and then late, J.R. Reed coming here is going to force the cutback by Marshall on a play where he'd like to set up and try to hit a pass play downfield. Pressure from both levels blew that one up.
Fromm taking a shot, end zone, caught, touchdown, Miko Hardman. Georgia got the momentum with the sack. They cash in with a 44-yard strike to Hardman. Third passing touchdown for Fromm today.
I knew the shot play was coming. You just knew by the way they've been running the football that eventually they were going to stretch the ball vertically, and no one does that better than Miko Hardman. Great route, great play call, even better throw.
Tech's defense watched the replay on the big board. They look shell-shocked after that one. Blankenship punches it through. Georgia leads 28-7. The only score for Georgia Tech came on a kickoff return.
There aren't many guys that can guard Miko Hardman in the slot or on a football field, period. But what you don't want is for Miko Hardman to be running downfield and to have your linebacker, number 51, Brant Mitchell, trying to run. This is a 2-shell, 2 Mike. That Mike linebacker trying to run with a slot receiver as fast as Miko Hardman 50 yards down the field is never going to work. Great identification by Jake Fromm at the line of scrimmage, understanding where the mismatch was, understanding his personnel, and then delivering a dime.
28-7. Anye Thomas has a 100-yard kickoff return to his name already today. And he'll watch it clear his head here. It leaves Georgia Tech with a 1st and 18. Clinton Lynch to the 20, a gain of 3. Tobias Oliver's at quarterback now for Georgia Tech.
He had a couple of really big games. Rushed for 215 yards against Virginia Tech, 120 yards versus North Carolina, 5 TDs between those 2 games. Hasn't played a ton the last 2 games that Georgia Tech has had, but he's the more athletic, a little tougher to tackle, more of the running quarterback, even though Marshall doesn't throw it a ton either. Both these guys rushed for over 800 yards this year.
Had a high school rivalry with Fromm. Oliver taken down behind the line of scrimmage. DeAndre Walker. And Georgia living in the Georgia Tech backfield here in the first half.
Georgia Tech in a situation down 28-7. But they got to start throwing the football. But thing is, that's not what they are best at. And Georgia, something they haven't done all year, really provide pressure on the quarterback. They are getting into the backfield consistently.
Nicole Hardman leads the SEC in punt return average. Good blocking at the outset. And he takes that one down Tanny Creek for a 41-yard return after a 25-yard punt. James Cook grinds for a couple yards here. Rare to see Cook in the first half. And just his 5th carry out of 246 this season that has occurred in the first half.
Well, a guy they like. He's actually probably their most explosive back. I know Swift is the home run hitter, and he can do that, and he is as good as it gets with those big runs, but they love James Cook, so I like to see him early here getting some reps, significant game time.
On 2nd and 8, Cook squeezes through for a Georgia first down. Brant Mitchell finally brings him down after a gain of 10.
You can see already just how slippery he is. See the cuts weaving in and out.
Here's DeAndre Swift, bounces to the outside, turns it upfield with a stiff arm, and he's got a Georgia first down. Remember, Michigan's lone loss came early in the season to Notre Dame. Should Notre Dame stay undefeated, they would stay in the playoff. Ohio State's loss came in a blowout to Purdue.
First down, Georgia.
Swift is averaging 5 yards a carry today.
First and 10 from the 11.
Looks like Solomon Kinley back in there already at left guard.
3 touchdown passes for Jake Fromm as you go to the air again. It's Swift. Cuts it back and picks up 3.
Jordan, you mentioned Solomon Kinley back in at left guard, has had a good year, but this offensive line extremely beat up. I talked to Sam Pittman. We talked to Jim Chaney, the offensive coordinator, yesterday about what would happen if they lost a tackle in this game. And both guys, when we asked them, didn't really have an answer. Said, listen, we'd have to really think about it. We think we know what we're going to do, but from a depth perspective, we are nowhere near where we want to be or where we were going into the season.
It's not good when Alabama's up next, is it?
No. I think they got a guy, number 92, Quentin Williams, is pretty good. Might want to have a healthy offensive line.
Elijah Holyfield, outside run, dives. He is in. Touchdown, Georgia.
Who'd they run behind? Solomon Kinley getting an initial block here on 23 that gives a little bit of space for a Holyfield. And then that's all Holyfield at the end. Diving from the 3-yard line, getting that in. But I don't know if you can say anything bad about Georgia's offense today. I mean, what do you say? We're talking about injuries, but Solomon's back out there. I mean, well, they've been perfect.
To be quite frank, they are treating Georgia Tech like they're UMass.
Yeah.
I mean, this looks no different than it did last week. Georgia has 5 touchdowns from 5 different players. They have been unstoppable for the last week and a half. UMass, Georgia Tech, doesn't seem to matter.
Let's see. I mean, just look at it. I mean, just let those numbers speak for themselves. 300 yards.
300 yards, and they've only had to go for it 3 times on 3rd down.
And 43 from Georgia Tech. I mean, Georgia Tech has not been slowed down by anybody but themselves this year. The games where they haven't been productive on offense is because of turnovers, penalties, or mental mistakes.
It's changed today. Blankenship bangs another one through the back of the end zone. Taquon Marshall at quarterback. Keeps it on the edge for a Georgia Tech first down.
There's a really good drive starter. Haven't seen that much space for Taquon Marshall yet today. He has had nowhere to run the football. Georgia overplayed the dive there, and that's when the quarterback option will hit you.
They rule him just short of a first down, and the knee was down before the ball came out at the end, it seems. So 2nd and inches. First down, a little bit more for Jerry Howard. Howard, sophomore from Rock Hill, South Carolina. Averaged 4 yards a carry last week against Virginia. He's a fighter. He's been through so much in his young life. His dad was murdered his junior year of high school. Around National Signing Day, his sister was killed in a car accident. Now he's got a son of his own. Marshall keeps it himself. Gets hog-tied by Jonathan Ledbetter. Pickup of 6. 2nd and 5. It's Cersei in motion. And they're going to throw. Marshall chase. Taylor pressured him. And it flutters incomplete to leave 3rd and 5.
It's interesting when you watch this offense against this Georgia defense last year, almost every pass play for the first 3 quarters, they added motion to it. And then they got in a position late in the game where they had to throw, Georgia Tech speaking of, you wouldn't see any motion with the pass plays. But a lot of times you're going to see a motion that will lead you into some sort of a rollout.
It's not very often that Paul Johnson's offense is predictable. Third down 5. Option, pitch to Cottrell, bundled up and brought down. No gain. DeAndre Baker coming up from his cornerback spot for the stop.
It's just a great job. You're going to see the dive. You're going to see the option here. 31's going to come from this side. And there is a Georgia defender for every option. One on the quarterback, one on the pitchman or the blocker, and then someone setting the edge, waiting for the pitchman on the outside. A very well-defended option play, again, by Georgia.
Please put 55 seconds on the game clock. 55 seconds.
Georgia Tech to throw on 4th and 6. Marshall pressured, escapes once, can't escape twice. It's another sack for the Bulldogs defense. Malik Herring was in there. It's a loss of 7, and Georgia will get the ball back in prime field position with 43 seconds left.
And there is just nowhere for Marshall to go. He's going to have pressure from both edges, and then you're going to see the gap get shot. He's going to try to step up, eyes downfield, pressure on both edges, but there's nowhere to go. As a quarterback, you're okay with pressure off the edge if you can step up into a pocket or step up and run through. But you couldn't there. Juwan Taylor coming straight up the A-gap, blowing it up.
What do you do from a play selection standpoint if you're Georgia? You have 1 timeout remaining.
You got 1 timeout. This first play is always kind of a feeler. I wouldn't imagine, I wouldn't be surprised if they get the ball on the perimeter. Soft zone coverage right here by Georgia Tech. Let your playmaker try to get you a chunky yards.
Fromm against that zone, incomplete, little bit wide, trying to find Riley Ridley. Georgia drive chart. All 5 drives today have ended in a touchdown.
Well, remember Jim Chaney, when we were talking to him yesterday, said, hey, this game's simple, right? Control the ball, hold the ball, score points. Well, they did it. So far, perfect in the first half.
It's like cooking the perfect turkey on Thursday.
Not always easy, though.
No, it's not. DeAndre Swift. Georgia first down, taken down inbounds. Clock will stop for a moment on a gain of 13. Tariq Carpenter the stop.
Now you see Georgia pushing the tempo a little bit. Once you hit a chunk play, you can decide to push the pedal to the metal.
Clock rolling. Fromm looking, connects with Isaac Nauta. He is inbounds. The clock will run at 26 seconds, but it'll stop just for the chains to move.
Nauta is such a weapon in 2-minute situations because most defenses are playing off zone coverage. So he kind of gets lost in the mix. I think it was Florida we saw him have 3-4 big catches on a 2-minute drive. And again, right back to him.
This time he steps out of bounds. Stop the clock with 19. Remember, Rodrigo Blankenship has a long of 53 this season. Big leg waiting in the wings for Georgia.
Even though that play right there is working, you can still use the middle of the field if you're Georgia here with 19 seconds left. You have a timeout. You lull them to sleep with some quick flat routes by the tight end. Be surprised if we see a slant coming back the other way or a shot into the end zone.
Could you run it with Swift?
Yeah, you absolutely could. But then that kind of dictates that you're gonna have to take that timeout.
Sure. Swift picks up the blitz. Dump to the edge again. Isaac Nauta decides to stay in bounds at first, and he does so. Clock will stop for a moment with 9 seconds left. They'll move the chain and a timeout taken. Georgia scored a touchdown in every possession thus far today. First and goal. Out of timeouts. Werner in motion.
Riley Ridley One-on-one, bottom of your screen.
Lob, that corner end zone, incomplete, trying to find Ridley. Covered by Ajani Kerr. And Kerr chatting with Ridley. They're going to bring on Blankenship with 5 seconds left.
And I think a little miscommunication there between Ridley and Fromm. Fromm was thinking a little more over the top. I think Ridley was expecting a back shoulder in that situation.
Is that just reps, or is that something that's decided?
It's just a feel thing. I mean that wasn't as clear cut. Ridley was kind of even with the defender, so as a quarterback you could think that could be either. I mean, Ridley 6'2", so you like the jump ball, but I think Ridley was probably thinking back shoulder, as good as Fromm's been throwing that all year.
Rodrigo Blankenship has made 18 of 20 field goal attempts this season. He remains one of the best kickers in the country. And Georgia scores on every single possession in the first half to take a 38-7 lead on Georgia Tech. Georgia has scored on every possession over the last 2 games, with the exception of an end-of-game kneel down against UMass. They averaged 8 yards on first down in the first half. They pick up 18 first downs. They get 5 touchdowns and a field goal. A 24-point second quarter. Let's see how Kirby Smart's feeling. He's with Cole.
Coach Smart, your offense over 1,000 yards the last 3 halves of football. What are we seeing on that side of the ball with your team?
Well, the guys are playing at a high level. They're playing hard. They believe in each other, and we got to keep doing that.
You stressed discipline, especially visually on the defensive side of the football coming into this game. Did you see enough of it in the first half?
Kids playing hard. We still got some busts on defense, but they're playing really hard, running to the ball, making it fun. It's like playing backyard ball.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you.
Kirby Smart was 3-1 against Georgia Tech as a player, and now as a coach, he's looking for another win against the Jackets. 38-7 is the first half score here in the Classic City. Let's get to the studio. Peter Burns, Chris Doring, Gene Chizik. State, what a day for Kirby Smart. His offense is rolling. His defense is suffocating. His quarterback, Jake Fromm, 12 of 15 with 3 touchdowns. On the other side, a long way to go for Paul Johnson and Georgia Tech. He's won 2 in a row here, but Taquon Marshall and his offense have a hard time finding room to roam. Tom Hart, Jordan Rogers, Cole Kublik's down on the field. I mean, what can you say if you're Georgia Tech? This is a first half you'd like to forget. And what can you say if you're a Georgia fan? This is a first half of perfection.
Yeah, you can be really happy about it if you're a Georgia fan, and then you can start to think, okay, we got Alabama coming up in a week. Let's start to figure out who we want to get out of the game, who we want to leave in the game. To me, I think we're going to see some Justin Fields in the second half.
They haven't had to show any new wrinkles today that they may be using against Alabama because there's been no need.
Yeah, and Georgia Tech plays a very vanilla zone defense, so they've been able to take the free access, the soft coverage on the outside when it was there, and flat out they've just ran the football between the tackles very effectively, utilizing their size. So perfect game plan, perfect execution by Georgia. Didn't show a ton, and now I think in the second half, start strong and then start to rest and get some of your starters out of there.
You just maybe look at the roster to find who the strong guy is. If walk-on freshman, he might play. Largest margin victory in this series is 48. That was Georgia Tech in 1943. 0-2. Georgia won 51-7. This one less competitive than that. Let's go down the field. We check in with Cole.
Tom spoke to Coach Johnson coming out of the halftime. Asked him, what do you do if you're this Georgia Tech offense? How do you adjust? Do you stick with what got you here, stick with the triple option? He kind of laughed and said, if we don't get the football, it doesn't really matter. He said, we've got to get stops defensively, have to try and get the football back, and then maybe we make some adjustments offensively, try to do a few things different.
But they're not going to change who they are offensively. No. They might try to take more risks for big gain plays, but that doesn't necessarily mean passing plays. They hand it off on first down and find 2 yards. Jordan Mason, the freshman from Gallatin, Tennessee, with the carry. 66 yards on the ground for the nation's leading rushing offense, 354 yards a game. And that's almost 50 yards more than the second most prolific rushing offense. Far and away the best rushing team in the country this year.
Yeah, they found a little bit of success towards the end of the half there, getting the ball off tackle, getting Marshall on the edge with an A-back as an option. But you got to start where your offense is centered around, which is that dive, which we saw in the first play. Now I wouldn't be surprised.
You can't afford to do that.
I was going to say, wouldn't be surprised if they start to get it off tackle, which they tried to do there, but can't do that without the ball.
It's a Georgia Tech team that makes its living taking the ball away and possessing it on the other side. They have yet to get a takeaway on defense, and they almost coughed one up. 3rd down 9. Marshall to throw, flushed again, changes direction again, and he'll Reggie ball that one over to the hedges.
Get nowhere, no pocket for Marshall. Getting a little gun shy back there. He started to look at that rush a little sooner than he'd like a quarterback to, but you can't blame him. He's had nowhere to stand, to look downfield all day, and again, great pressure from the interior for Georgia. Something I wanted to see from them. They're going to need to see that next week.
Big Cole Hardman to receive. Not a good punt. It hangs up, and Hardman rushes up to take it after a 29-yard punt. Here in the Classic City, a chilly Saturday afternoon, but Bulldog fans feeling good about the way this one's going. And the expectations now are wildly different with this program. I mean, they expect to get back there this year.
Yeah, how different is this program than 2 years ago when they lost to Georgia Tech on this field? Just think about that team and how different not just the personnel was in 2016, but the expectations in 2016 versus now. Night and day. They expect to compete for national championships. They expect to be in the college football playoff. Alabama's standing in the way, but this is a program that has had a meteoric rise to the top.
And if you're Kirby Smart, that's a pretty good blueprint to follow, right? There's nothing better than what Nick Saban has accomplished in his decade plus in Tuscaloosa. Elijah Holyfield dances and fights and grinds. He's got a Georgia first down, and a host of white shirts find him. Pickup of 6. Be interesting to see what the rankings look like going into championship weekend. Ohio State leads Michigan 24-19 at the half.
Here's a big one. Georgia fans, probably every one of them has that game, that score up on their phone right now.
Wow, what a burst of speed by DeAndre Swift. He was just oozing through the offensive line, and then he took off.
You know, Nate Woody, the defensive coordinator for Georgia Tech, as you mentioned earlier, faced this Georgia team last year.
Yep.
So I kind of just asked him, well, what's different? Obviously, no Nick Chubb, no Sony Michel. Those guys are playing on Sundays now. He goes, yeah, but there's not a drop-off. I mean, Swift and Holyfield are different, but as good as those two. And he said they're more versatile. They're more dangerous on the outside with the weapons that Fromm has this year and how he's developed in throwing the football.
The versatile Swift, another chance, a hesitation behind the line. Then he gets to the edge, stays in bounds, and down the line. He is out of bounds at the 2-yard line. It'll be 1st and goal, Georgia, after a 28-yard run.
That foot
Inside the 1.
I think they shorted him about a yard on that. Got it spotted at the 2 right now. That's, I mean, just how the burst, the speed that he has. I mean, that play was all jumbled up at the line of scrimmage. He bounces it. One cut later.
Here's Brian Harrion. He's stopped. Georgia Tech comes up and sticks him. Brant Mitchell, senior out of Knoxville's Webb School, had 8 tackles against Georgia last year.
Just shoots the A-gap here. Really good job by the linebacker that we saw got burned earlier in the game. in a mismatch in coverage against Mecole Hardman. That's not his strong suit. Coverage is not. But he's a very north and south linebacker. Showed it there. Good play. This is the set. Georgia loves these tight splits.
Yeah.
Create space on the outside. Wouldn't be surprised they throw a corner out here.
Fromm over the middle. It is caught. It's another touchdown pass for Jake Fromm. Second touchdown catch of the game for Riley Ridley. This is bordering on the ridiculous.
It's just the patience he has. He was looking for the corner route to the left side. Riley Ridley was actually on a stick route to the right side of Fromm, and then kind of plays a little backyard football. Sees Fromm holding the football, continues towards the middle there, opens up in the zone. It's just, I mean, Fromm's just been so perfect.
So a couple questions remain. How long will Fromm play? When will we see Fields? And what kind of number can the Dogs put up today? They have scored on every single possession this afternoon against their rivals from Atlanta. Well, at the conclusion of the season, Paul Johnson said he will reflect on where he is and whether or not he wants to continue coaching. He was magnificent at Georgia Southern, three-time FCS National Coach of the Year, two-time national champion. Took Navy to 5 bowl games. Won the ACC with Georgia Tech, three-time ACC Coach of the Year. And today's result notwithstanding, I just get the feeling that nationally he's not as appreciated as he should be based on the number of wins and the success, and probably not as appreciated within Atlanta as much as he should be. He has taken a unique offense, a non-traditional offense in this day and age. He's recruited 2- and 3-star guys to get into the Institute, and he's won a ton of games.
I think that's what's most impressive, just the roster that he does it with, let alone the budgetary restrictions at a school like Georgia Tech compared to the big dogs that he has to go against week to week, and especially in games like this against an SEC school. But it's the uniqueness to that offense that provides even the best defensive coordinators in the country, like Kirby Smart, fits. And you could tell yesterday talking to him, he didn't enjoy this. He doesn't enjoy scheming against this offense because it's so unique. They're so good at it. There's a small margin of error when you face this type of team. Today, Georgia's just been better, flat out, at every position.
Jeff Schultz writes for The Athletic in the week of the Miami game. He talked to Paul Johnson about his future. And the quote was, "I've said all along, I'll be ready to step down when it's not fun." He said, "I don't think it's ever easy to decide." Georgia Tech will be heading to a bowl game this year. The Military Bowl in Annapolis, where Paul coached for so long, is one of the options. That might be a fitting way to put a cap on a great career. Marshall gets swallowed up. Lost 2. He was trying to match Bobby Dodd for wins in Athens if he would have won his 3rd in a row here at Sanford Stadium. That won't happen today. Jake Fromm has thrown 4 touchdown passes today. Georgia Tech has attempted only 5. We're through with 3 quarters, and Georgia in firm control. They've now gone to the dynamic Justin Fields at quarterback. We'll see what he can do next. Marshall tracked down and dropped, and Georgia turns it over on downs. Fromm over the middle. It is caught. It's another touchdown pass for Jake Fromm. To the 4th quarter we go. Clean, old-fashioned hate. Been a one-sided affair today. Georgia Tech has 1 touchdown. It came via special teams. Here's Carmelo with the champ, Evander Holyfield, watching his son. You know, Evander played football at Fulton High School in Atlanta. He told folks he wanted to play linebacker here in Georgia when he came back from the '84 Olympics. I think he made the right choice. As a 15-year-old, he was 5'4", 115 pounds. On 3rd down, it is batted back. It is then knocked down by Taquon Marshall. Smart play. Adam Anderson was able to work his way into the backfield.
More impressive, Holyfield as a linebacker or Mello as a tight end? I mean,
well, nobody wants to get hit by Holyfield, no matter what.
No.
Can you imagine being at the bottom of some of those piles?
Oh. You know what?
Couple rib shots, you wouldn't get them up.
Someone needs to tell Carmelo that tight ends still have to block. I think he meant to say wide receiver.
You
think he wants to mix it up in there?
He's a free agent right now. Maybe he's looking to hook up with an NFL team. Tech will punt it away. Akil Crumpton stands at the 40. A one hopper, and that will trickle off of a Georgia Tech player. So it's actually cooler here in Athens than it is in Columbus, Ohio. 48 degrees here, 49 in Columbus, which means everyone's going to make some sartorial decisions.
As I suspected, one drive in the bag for Jake Fromm in the second half, and here comes Justin Fields.
5 of 8 last week against UMass through the air. He was a 100-yard rusher. First for a quarterback at Georgia since Quincy Carter in 1998.
But, yeah, got nothing for you there except for that beanie's a little saggy in the back.
No more red bicycle for me.
I'm going to miss you guys next week. James Cook with the carry. Now that's a classic look. By the way, can we get Dana Holgerson to wear a hat? I don't know if the visor's really working for him.
Yeah.
Now Kirby can rock a visor. He's got plenty of salad to protect up top.
At some point, someone in the TV booth or a coach upstairs has got to tell you, hey, coach, might want to cover that up.
That one works. Let's see what's working tonight. SEC Saturday night. Ed Ogeron and LSU take on Jimbo Fisher in Texas A&M. Which Kellen Mond will show up, I think, is a big question.
That's the biggest question, because Texas A&M really hasn't had a signature win yet. They've won the games they probably should have, and they've lost the games that could have been either way, or maybe would have signified that they've taken that next step under Jimbo. This is one that I think LSU's got to be on high alert, playing at Texas A&M. The right A&M team shows up, they could win that.
Fields pressured, steps away from it, will take off. And he lowers his shoulder at midfield. It's a gain of 7. Malik Rivera, he graduated from Wofford with a degree in mathematics, finance, and computer science. He played in the FCS playoffs the last 2 years, comes up to make the stop as a graduate transfer for Georgia Tech.
And Nate Woody, the defensive coordinator for Georgia Tech, said he's probably the best decision they ever made was going to get Malik Rivera to transfer in. Bright spot on that defense. You saw the elusiveness of Justin Fields. They're trying to push the ball downfield, and had a late developing twist by Georgia Tech. He was able to scamper out and get a few yards. Got to learn to slide when he has the opportunity.
On 4th and 1, let's see if he got it.
Not sliding on 4th and 1, though, that's for sure. I think that spot's going to give it to him.
He's not really happy about playing an option team at all, let alone this point in the schedule. You guys asked him, well, would you think about, because of the prep that it takes, putting another option team on the schedule, maybe an FCS team, say a Citadel? No chance.
No. Doing it once is bad enough. You don't want to have to do that twice, not just from a preparation standpoint, but
in spring, every practice they send 10 minutes on the option. Preseason camp, they spend an entire day on the option, and then 2 days on Georgia Tech's offense during the off week. Ball came loose, and Georgia Tech's got its first takeaway. It's Brandon Adams who found it. He forced it, and he got it.
True freshman quarterback, true freshman running back. Sometimes that exchange gets a little sloppy.
Kind of looked like Cole's beanie. Not pretty. Ripped out by Brandon Adams and recovered. And again, this is what's on the line. The Governor's Cup, presented by the Children's Healthcare of Atlanta and Governor Deal. Ready to present it. And it will go to Georgia once again unless something incredible happens in the last 10.5 minutes. Speaking of incredible, they just showed Ohio State with a block punt for a touchdown against Michigan on the big board. And that represents an opportunity for Georgia to get back in the college football playoff. They're going to throw to the edge again, a backwards pass and maybe a yard. The ball came loose. If you're Georgia Tech, this game has been about as pretty as an aardvark. I mean, this has been just a total beatdown. Their quarterbacks are 0 for 6 through the air. The best rushing team in the country has been held to 107 yards.
An anteater?
Yeah, they're not pretty. No, the
No,
aardvark's not really. I mean, they have that pig-like snout. They go behind the line. They want to throw back. This is Marshall on the receiving end. He's got blockers out front. Taquon Marshall to the 20-yard line. Third straight time they've run that play. They finally throw it back. James Graham, the freshman quarterback out of Fitzgerald, Georgia, on the receiving end and the throwing end.
Interesting wrinkle, because most of the time you'd be worried about those blockers in front of the receiver stocking and going, throwing over the top to that side. It kept waiting for that to be the wrinkle, and then a quarterback throwback. Might be the most productive play we've seen in a while.
It is indeed. 22 yards on the gain. And the first completion today for the Yellow Jackets. Jerry Howard is the B-back. He gets it straight ahead. Okay, so let's play this thing forward with the college football playoff. If Ohio State holds on against Michigan and they can finish the season with the Big Ten title, they'll be a one-loss team. Georgia right now is a one-loss team. If they can beat Alabama next week, you would think that would put them in prime position, but I don't know if anything's guaranteed in this day and age. Here's the toss. Lynch. And he's got a Georgia Tech first down speed. Got a one-loss Oklahoma team, a one-loss Ohio State team, a one-loss Georgia team. Jerry Howard straight ahead. To go along with Notre Dame and Clemson.
I think Notre Dame and Clemson will take care of business. Obviously, it definitely helps out Georgia a lot with Ohio State up 2 scores now. If they hold on, Georgia still, they got to beat Alabama.
Yeah.
They, in some degree, control their own destiny. If they beat Alabama, they will be in.
Here's Searcy trying to find the edge, and he reaches for the goal line. He's in. First offensive touchdown of the day for Georgia Tech. For Quay Searcy, it's a 3-yard plunge.
Lunges for the goal line at the end. That knee stays up. That's a good call by the ref standing there right in front. Thought about spotting it short here. You can see a little indecision by the ref as he takes one step back, but then confirmed. It's a good effort by Searcy on the outside. Georgia's got a lot of reserve guys in, so you're seeing Georgia Tech start to move the ball a little more successfully than they did, obviously, the rest of the game. They had a tough time.
6-play, 44-yard drive. 2 minutes and 56 seconds. Quay Searcy to find his 3rd rushing touchdown of the season.
And we're going to learn a lot this week, because you think about Ohio State just beat the team that they've had at 4 for what, since the entire time. So that's,
well, not yet, but they're going to.
So if they get that win, Oklahoma just beat a team that they've had in their top 15 for the entire time. So who moves up the most?
They go with the end around again. I just want, just for clarification purposes. So we know, okay, I'm going to go on a limb here. We know that Alabama is a great team.
Yes.
They're the best team in college football right now. That doesn't mean that they can't lose next week to Georgia. But let's say they do in a tightly contested game. Are we sure, 100% positive, that Georgia gets in over Alabama?
Yes, a one-loss SEC champion, with that one loss being on the road at LSU, who was number 3 in that committee's eyes at some point, and the committee has probably held higher than any other 2-loss team this year. Yeah, I absolutely believe Georgia's in, no matter what, 100%.
Well, just for clarification, and here's James Cook trying to put an exclamation point on this one. He lost it on the way down, it seems, but also lost his hand warmers. Justin Schaefer hustles down to recover it. It's a gain of 27. Urban Meyer is trying to go 7-0 against Michigan. Ohio State leads that game 41-19. This guy's good.
He's explosive. He's got to hold on to that ball. And I know that's not a fumble. His arm hit, before the ball came out, but that's now twice that he's been involved in a play where the ball's hit the ground. Once right after a handoff. Can't have that happen. As a true freshman, you can be explosive, you can be dynamic, but if you can't hold on the football, you're not going to get any meaningful time.
This will go as a pass. Akil Crumpton takes it from Fields and is able to finally turn the corner and pick up a first down. Brought down by Christian Campbell and Desmond Branch. It's a 12-yard gain. LSU and A&M a matchup of top 25 teams tonight at Kyle Field and College Station. Taylor Zarzer, former Georgia offensive lineman Matt Stinchcomb, and Chris Budden will be on the call.
You think about a game like that, you start nitpicking schedules. Georgia fans need to be cheering for LSU tonight.
Yeah, there's some thought that there's some Bulls out there that would love to match up Texas A&M and Texas with a New Year's 6 appearance possible.
Cook carries inside the 20.
Did help the committee, Washington State losing last night. Because, I mean, the scenarios we're going through, if Georgia wins, there's a scenario where you got 2 conference champions, possibly, and Alabama for that 4th spot. Or maybe if Alabama were to knock off Georgia, Washington State, Ohio State, Oklahoma could be 3 Power 5 conference champions, all with 1 loss, and 2 of them would have got left out. I mean, it's an interesting year for the College Football Playoff Committee. Still a lot to be decided here. Ohio State up 41-19.
Washington and Utah will meet for the Pac-12 title next week. Winner of that one goes to the Rose Bowl. Nowhere to go for Akil Crumpton, the senior from Philadelphia. Loss of 2.
So all we really know at this point is no Pac-12.
Yeah.
That's what we're saying.
And I don't know that UCF will be any closer to being in the competition after the disastrous injury to Mackenzie Melton, their quarterback, who's been the leader of the team for the last 2 years.
Yeah, that was terrible to see, especially because Washington State losing kind of helped them out. If they were going to have an outside chance at making the playoff, which I don't think would have come to fruition anyway, but tough to see a dynamic player like Mackenzie Milton go down with a terrible injury.
Wow, Fields caught the Karam pass, and he ends up losing yardage. Desmond Branch with a fine play up front by Georgia Tech.
We saw Taquon Marshall earlier have a ball deflected up in the air. He did the right thing, knock it down. This is one they'll break down on film, and Jim Chaney will talk to Justin Fields either in film or maybe on the phone in just a few minutes and say, hey, I know you want to make a play, but let's knock this one down. Don't make a bad play worse. Incompletion's a 0-yard gain and a 0-yard loss, and we're headed the wrong way. Just knock that one down.
48-yard attempt for Rodrigo Blankenship. He is 7 of 8 in field goals between 40 and 49 yards this season. I have never seen a kicker be such a fan favorite. That one just off the upright. When he was announced pregame, the entire student section went nuts. The entire stadium did. And a rare miss from Hot Rod. Left it just a bit right. And Georgia fails to convert.
Speaking of one of the best dressed guys in SEC Network,
Peter
not
Burns?
named Tom Hart.
Oh. This one thrown away. Devontae Wyatt chasing Taquon Marshall.
Two things I think I've seen over the last 2 weeks for Georgia that bode well moving forward to the matchup against Alabama. Last week, seeing Justin Fields throw the football the way he did. We all knew it was capable, but you put that on film, Now Alabama's got to defend that. And I do believe that Georgia will need Justin Fields for a few drives as a changeup, as a package quarterback, but a package quarterback that can really stretch the field as well, and Alabama will have to defend him as such. That's the first thing.
Screen to Jerry. Howard goes for a Tech first down.
The second thing today, and Georgia Tech, because of what they do on offense, is a tough team to get after the quarterback against. But that's one thing I've needed to see from Georgia. They're last in the SEC in sacks. They have 3 today. They're last in the SEC in tackles for loss. This is something they're going to need to do against Alabama. They have to be disruptive on the front four. The times that we've seen Tua Tagovailoa be human and not a robot that just throws completions and touchdowns is when he's been pressured. Mississippi State, they got after him. They got his jersey dirty, and he made mistakes. Forced to throw against LSU against pressure. Threw an interception the play after getting hit against Mississippi State. This Georgia front 4 and front 7 are going to have to find ways to get after Tua Tagovailoa. And I think they showed today that they're capable of doing so, even though it's a lesser opponent. Sometimes that confidence, sometimes seeing it on tape, can bode well for going into a game confident that you can accomplish that.
Cole, is Tua healthy?
I believe he is. He played without that knee brace against Citadel, went the entire way. So I think he's as healthy as he's going to get. I think his knee injury probably is one where he's going to need some rest in the offseason, but he's as healthy as he's going to get right now.
Beautiful route run by Brad Stewart, and the senior makes the grab and takes a lick from Otis Reese.
Yeah, I'll add one more to what Jordan threw in there. And you got Lamont Galliard at center, who is one of the better centers in this league. Solomon Kinley, Ben Cleveland, Cade Mays, Trey Hill, whoever it is, whatever two are standing next to Lamont Galliard when they line up against Quentin Williams may be as important or more important than anything else Jordan just threw out, because 92 for Alabama will wreck your game plan in a hurry.
He's a bad man. A big, violent, bad man. And they're going to have to find ways to double team him, but even still, we've seen LSU, Mississippi State have big physical offensive linemen try to double team him, and he cut through them like me putting butter on my dinner rolls at Thanksgiving. So
I don't know if that's how the analogy works, but it
goes something like that.
You go with
through butter, you know. I was just, you know. Don't at me, Tom Hart.
Under a minute to go. Georgia Tech airing it out right now. There's Cersei.
Sometimes I just pull things out of my head.
I think a lot of people thought this game would be more competitive today.
I'm one of them. I did think it was going to be much more competitive. And if you're Johnson, you got to be frustrated, because you always go up against opponents that are more physically dominant than you are. Maybe more athletic at times, but the scheme always finds ways to win, and they didn't today.
It's supposed to be the great equalizer. It was anything but this afternoon.
Yeah, and really that's a credit to Mel Tucker and Kirby Smart for the game plan and really the teaching. Not as much the game plan, it's the teaching that they did all week, that they've done for a few days.
Jump ball caught, end zone, Brad Stewart.
Just as we're giving praise, the jump ball to Brad Stewart for the touchdown. Boy, he's had some big plays the last few weeks. 31-yard touchdown sealed the win versus Miami. Had a 37-yard diving catch for a go-ahead score last week. He's their go-to guy. And Marshall threw him a 50-50 ball, and he got it.
So the senior in his final rivalry game will find a score on a touchdown pass from Taquon Marshall. Wesley Wells, first product of Lumpkin County High School to ever score points in an FBS game, drills another point after. Squib kick, and Georgia will take a knee.
Quarterback Justin Fields takes a knee.
Fields will finish it off by taking a knee.
Play of the game today. The final score.
A pair of fourth quarter touchdowns for Georgia Tech makes it look a lot better than it was. Georgia led this game at one point 45-7.
God fans, thank you for your attendance and support all season. Second straight.
And Georgia goes to 11-1 on the year.
The Bulldogs travel to Mercedes.
A date with Alabama to come. And then at worst, a New Year's Six bowl game. Perhaps the sugar for Georgia. Georgia Tech is one of a handful of ACC teams with just about the same record. Their bowl destination remains to be seen. Cole standing by with the winning head coach. Here's Kirby Smart.
Coach Smart is dominating a performance against the triple option as I've seen. How did that happen?
Hard work. You know, I got about three or four names for you. Prather Hudson, Erdman, Van Tifflin. These are all the guys that are selfless, and they cut players all week. Those guys deserve all the credit.
You cap off a one-loss regular season. To do it here at home against your rival, how does that feel?
Well, I'm just happy for our seniors. They worked so hard, and we've talked about the tale of two seasons, and really this group right here has really balled in and played hard today.
This group includes a group of seniors that have done a lot for your program. What did they specifically mean to you?
Well, it meant a lot to me because they balled in. You know, they came in under a different head coach, and they've all balled in, really good kids, and stuck around, and, man, they fought.
How do you turn the page now to Alabama in the SEC championship game?
Just turn on the tape. We got a great program, great team. We respect Alabama a lot. Got a good football team.
Thank you, Coach.
Thank you.
All right, Cole, fantastic work. Great preparation for Kirby Smart's team. The bragging rights stay in the Classic City. 45-21 is our final. We'll be back with more, but first let's get to the studio. Peter Burns, Gene Chizik, my favorite, Chris Doring.